Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Going down this weekend, UFC Shanghai, Umar Nurmagomedov will be facing Song Yadong. This is an epic fight, and I cannot wait to predict the entire main card. But now, if you just look, but now, I think the card on paper is not the greatest. There are some actual good fights that I'm actually looking forward to on the card, but then there's some that are like, why is he even on the main card, or why is he even on a prelim, or why is he not on the prelims? So, without any further ado, we are going to get into the main event. We got Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Song Yadong. Good main event. Feature fight of the night, co-main event, Jan versus Denise Gomes. Should be a good fight. Or Richie Long versus Kai Asakura. Now, this fight right here is where I actually despise. Why is this even on the main card? Why is Kai Asakura not facing someone better? So, weird. Alex Perez, Sumudaerji, the rematch. Actually, you know what? I don't mind this fight. I actually don't. This should be a pretty good fight. We got Levi Rodrigues taking on Ce Liu. Listen, this is a decent fight, but on the main card, are we for real? Bilal Hasan taking on Nilson Rojas. Banger. Bilal Hasan, one of the most talked about prospects right now. There are just some fights that I feel like that should be on the main card that isn't. But the card is pretty solid. There's some pretty decent fights. Before we get any further into the video, so yeah, I think I'm gonna sweep the board. I absolutely do okay with these Asian cards, but this one I'm very confident I'm gonna do very good. Before we get any further into the video, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe. If you guys haven't already, turn on notifications. We are going to sweep the board. Let's get into this. Up here, first fight of the night, taking place in the welterweight division. Meng taking on Cam Nelson. Now, this is going to be a quick breakdown, but I think this is a decent fight. Meng, man, his debut against Jose Suarza didn't go as planned, but it was a very good fight. I remember I predicted Meng to win the fight, but I also said in the video that if he gets hit a lot with a lot of big counter shots from Jose Suarza, he's going to eventually lose a close fight or possibly get knocked out, and he lost a pretty close fight. Had a pretty impressive win out on the original scene with a nasty leg kick knockout. Did lose his debut to Rahim. And then, won 2 fights out on the original scene as well. Cam Nelson, man. I like what I saw from him on the original scene. Hasn't fought the greatest of competition out on the original scene, but he looks pretty impressive. Had 2 decision wins over here. 2 fighters were decent. Got a knockout win over to whoever the heck this guy is. They did show some submission skills in this fight right here. And then he fought a decent competition in his most recent fight against Luis Carule, which I think that's a pretty good win. Especially after fighting a bunch of cans. Now, Cam Nelson does have 1 loss on his record, and that was back in I want to say 2024 or something like that. He lost a split decision. I did take a look at that fight, and it was a pretty close competitive fight. Now, Meng, he's only 31 years old, has about almost over 50 fights in professional MMA. Listen, Meng's a entertaining fighter, but the problem that I have here, he doesn't move his head like that. He gets hit with very clean counter shots, even against Jose Suarza. Jose Suarza managed to implement with the heavy grappling. And I think Cam Nelson can do the same thing. Even though I do think that when it comes to striking and accuracy, I think Jose Suarza is better at that. I think Cameron Smotherman definitely puts a bit more impact to his punches. Even though his last time getting a knockout was almost about a year ago over a guy who was 2-2. But knowing how we've seen before, we've seen Ding get clipped with pretty big shots. Even his most previous win, I looked into that fight. And what concerned me the most was on how many big shots he was absorbing early on in the rounds. He managed to find the knockout later on in the fight, which I definitely think was very good. But I think Kel Nelson's going to be able to get him out here. And I'm actually going to go with knockout towards the third round. I think the first two rounds are going to be very competitive. I just think eventually Ding's not going to be able to handle those big shots from Cam Nelson. I think this is going to be a good fight. As you can tell by the odds, is a literal pick 'em. But I'm going with Cam Nelson. I think he's going to get the job done. That's why I see winning this fight. Next up here in the strawweight division, Jingnan taking on Julia Polastri. Now, this is a solid fight. Julia Polastri hasn't been the typically one of the best fight, hasn't been the greatest prospect on the UFC roster. She did lose her UFC debut over here. Did get out schooled, but at the time, Kunison was 7-0. Had a split decision over Corey McKenna. Now, that's not really that good of a look. Corey McKenna's decent. Losing to Lupi Gudinas. Now, before you guys criticize this, I've already said Gudinas is still a top 10 fighter. Will she end up getting in the top 5? I don't know. There's a bunch of grapplers that she struggles with grappling. Then I'll be reading Carlina, who fought, I think if I'm not mistaken, fought for multiple world title shots. Then against Talita Elkar, man. I didn't like that performance whatsoever. I thought she won, but the thing is how Elkar had moments on the feet. Elkar's has good jiu-jitsu, good submission skills, but she's not that good on the feet. I don't know. I think Polastri was also scared to get taken down by her because, Elkar, like I said, is the better jiu-jitsu fighter. But I think this is a good comeback fight for Polastri because even though Jinnang was pretty good in the one championships, won this fight right here, won this fight, and it was actually a pretty good win. Then beating Angela Lee, going out there beating Bo Meg. And then, the thing is, man, I didn't like what I saw in her UFC debut against Angela Hill. Even though I know she was almost 39 years old, I thought she was going to be quite some trouble for the strawweight division. But going out there, getting out striking, it was getting hit by very big shots from Angela Hill. Now I know Angela Hill is a very crafty veteran, has fought some of the top dogs in our weight class. But I feel like Zhenong should have been able to get her out there. Now the problem is with Zhenong though, is that she's very inactive. She fought in this fight about almost 5 years ago. This fight right here, 4 years ago and 7 months. 3 years, almost 4 years. And almost half a year ago was her last win, which I think is diabolical. Even though I know Bastari isn't necessarily the greatest fighter on the UFC roster, but I think if you are getting comboed by Angela Hill, Bastari actually has some power in her hands. I think she's a more technical striker. Even though she was getting outstruck by Elkar, I still didn't think that was good enough for Bastari to lose that fight. Bastari is a solid C plus, maybe B minus fighter. You know what I mean? I think I was overglazing her, man. I thought she was gonna be some show for the division, and in reality, man, she wasn't. And I'm actually gonna favor Bastari in this fight. I think she's gonna be able to get the second round knockout here. Yes. May sound crazy, man, but I think the power that Bastari kind of has is going to be a bit too much for an older version of a Zhenong. And I generally do not see a world where Zhenong wins this fight. Now, this could be a cautious prediction, guys. But I think Bastari actually has a lot of success with the older, more experienced fighters in the division. That may sound a little crazy, but I think that's where Bastari kind of shines. I think she's going to be able to dominate on the feet. Maybe the grappling could definitely be a bit too much for Bastari in this fight, but I generally just do not see a world where Bastari loses this fight. Give me Bastari to win this one by knockout. Next up here in the bantamweight division, Lawrence Lue taking on Hector Santiago. Now, I like Lawrence Lue, man. He's a entertaining fighter. I like what I saw from him out in the original scene. Had a good striking matchups. Then made his first fight and road to the UFC, which was a pretty solid performance over Quinhys Zhang. Then got a absolute brutal knockout in his second appearance, which I thought that was a nasty right hand. Had a majority but close decision over a Salute Grambo, who's actually a pretty good fighter. Hector Santiago is a pretty good fighter too. On the feet, he's very entertaining with the striking. Not like a brawl type, but he has good knockout power. Now, about 7 months ago, almost 8 months ago, he did get submitted by this Markin Alexino guy, which isn't a good look. Went out there, won 2 decisions over Fernando Henrique and Paul Niguro. Now, listen, I know Hector Santiago hasn't fought, the best of the best of competition. But he's, pretty active, man. I think he's a bit more active than Lawrence Louis. Because before this fight right here, which was about 6 months ago, the last time he fought was almost about a year ago. So, the inactivity of Lawrence Louis could definitely slow him down a lot in this fight. And knowing that Hector Santiago is a bit more accurate, I think stylistically on the ground, on the feet, this fight is 50-50. Both fighters are very accurate strikers. I think Lawrence Louis is the more technical striker. He comes from city kickboxing with Navajo Sterling, Israel Adesanya, Carlos Ulrich, and a bunch more. But I think I think out of all though, I think he's a bit more of a wrestler than all of those guys. A lot of those guys are just kickboxers. He actually does mix it up with the wrestling, and that's something that I think that Hector Santiago kind of struggles with in these fights. Because even against this guy against El Sino, and I actually looked at the tape of him. He's a pretty good submission artist too. Not saying that Louis is a better grappler than him. I do think that McCann is a bit more of the better grappler. But I think if Louis can use those takedowns to his advantage, he definitely can have a lot of success coming into this fight with Hector Santiago. Now, I know it was a one fight and we haven't really seen him get taken down like that. But the thing is that I think that Hector Santiago, that I want to see in Hector Santiago, if Louis goes for the takedowns, I'm curious to see how that takedown defense would be of Hector Santiago against Lawrence Louis. Lawrence Louis, man, I don't know if he's going to be a future world champion. But what I will know is that he's going to be one of the big, I think that he's going to be one of Dana White's biggest favorites because he's an entertaining fighter. He's pretty good on the feet. I think he's going to be like kind of like an Al Laquita, man. Al Laquita, he was a monster, put on entertaining fights, but didn't manage to win that world title shot. I think that's what we're going to see from Lawrence Louis. But now, let me know in the comments. Do you guys think I'm overglazing Louis? I think that, I'm giving him a good amount of credit. He's a good striker on the feet. And I actually think he's going to be able to get the job done here. I think he's going to win a decision over Hector Santiago. I think on the feet, Hector Santiago is going to be able to give him trouble on the feet. But if it hits to the ground, how will that grappling affect Hector Santiago, especially towards those later rounds? Will he gas out? Will he be easily submitted? We don't know. I think this fight could definitely go either way, but I'm going to favor Lawrence Louis to go out here and get the job done by decision. Next up here in the featherweight division, we got up here Jack Jenkins taking on Sean Woodson. Now, this is a fight I've been going back and forth on, man, because Sean Woodson and Jack Jenkins are both very good, fundamental strikers. And the thing is, man, Sean Woodson is 6 feet tall, guys, with a 78-inch reach, while Jack Jenkins is 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, if I'm not mistaken. So the height difference is insane, man. If we look at Sean Woodson's last 5 fights, he goes out there, beats Denise Bazooka, which I know Denise Bazooka hasn't had the greatest run in the UFC, but he's a pretty talented boxer, and he's only lost to some good competition. Then going out there having a very close one. I thought George Gain won this fight, where Sean Woodson beat Charles Jourdain, and I did think that Charles Jourdain did get the job done, but very close fight, beating Alex Sarisi. Now, he's pretty trouble on the feet, managed to get the job done, beating Fernando Padilla, and I think that was a very nasty knockout. But then, his last bout was about almost a year and a half ago, over Dan Ige. Now, I know Dan Ige is a good boxer on the feet, a veteran of the division. But like ever since that win that Dan Ige had over Sean Woodson, Dan Ige hasn't won a fight ever since. He lost to Patricio Pitbull in a fight where he should have won, where where he should have not. But I felt like he kind of was playing the little too nice game with Patricio Pitbull. Then he went out there, got knocked out in the first round by Delsis Costa. Don't get me wrong, I know Delsis Costa just lost to Arnold Allen. But like in reality, man, he's a nasty knockout artist. But also the thing is, man, Dan Ige lost to Patricio Pitbull. He loses the next fight to Aaron Pico. Costa loses the next fight, beats Dan Ige. He loses the next fight to Arnold Allen. So it's like he's kind of in a scenario where Sean Woodson's not very active, man. And it's not like, and like, listen, if Dan Ige was still one of the top dogs in the weight class, I'm like, okay, that's not bad. But like Dan Ige is slowly starting to flop. He does have a fight lined up with David Martinez at UFC Noche, which I also think he's going to lose. So it's just that's the problem here. And against Jack Jenkins is a pretty good striker himself. Had a very close one against Jamal Emmers. And we just saw Jamal Emmers slime out Leron Douglas, man. Big win. Go out there, get submitted injured against Chepa Marcel. Then goes out there, beats Herbert Burns, which he has good jiu-jitsu, but in reality, man, not really a good MMA fighter. Goes out there, gets submitted by Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos has a lot of potential, man. And he was the last person to beat Mauricio Barboza. Mauricio Barboza right now is on a 5-fight winning streak. Not a bad loss. Then, most recently beating Roman Tarvis, man. And Roman Tarvis is actually a pretty good fighter, good boxer on the feet, knows how to mix it up, does have pretty good feints. I think that was a good win. So, Jack Jenkins also was supposed to fight Martin Freaky Rahiki back at UFC Perth, where he did get injured. Well, I don't think he got injured. I think he got, sick or something. But, I don't think it was that bad of an injury. Mind you, Jack Jenkins is still quite young, man. He's 32 years old, and I actually think this is a 50-50 fight. And I do believe this fight should be on the main card of the fight. But hey, man, we got to see some banger fights early on. Now, a lot of you guys actually think, and now I'm actually a little bit surprised that this is not a pick'em, nor a little bit favorite to Jack Jenkins, just because he's been more active. And also, even though I know Sean Woodson is very long rangey on the feet, but fighters managed to close that gap, even against Charles Jourdain. And that's the whole reason why I thought Charles Jourdain beat Sean Woodson. He managed to close that gap very easily and destroy him with powerful leg kicks, man. That's the thing, man. He has these very skinny legs, kind of skinny bone legs, and he's very hittable. And he's just very hittable when it comes to those leg kicks. Does not know how to check them. And Jack Jenkins actually has some pretty solid leg kicks, man. Even against the most recent fight against Roman Tarvis, man. He was actually landing some pretty nasty leg kicks to stop the pressured boxing of Roman in that fight. And I did go against Jack Jenkins in that fight. I thought Tarvis was gonna be too pressure with the boxing, and he looked pretty good in that. But I don't think Tarvis is necessarily a can. So that's a good win. Yeah, and like I said, the Jamal Emmers win, very good. So yeah, and the fact is that concerning that, like I said, Sean Woodson hasn't fought in about a year and a half ago. I think stylistically this is a 50-50 fight. But I'm at the side here with the underdog, man. I'm gonna go with the underdog in this one, man. I'm gonna have to go with Jack Jenkins to win the decision, man. I think Sean Woodson, like I said, even if Sean Woodson was a bit more active, I would still go with Jack Jenkins just because he doesn't really know how to keep that distance. Once you kind of close that gap, he's very hittable, and you can easily kick him with nasty leg kicks that I think that Jack Jenkins could definitely implement on in this fight. So I'm gonna side with Jack Jenkins, man. I think he's gonna be able to implement with the leg kicks. I think it's gonna slow down the long rangey gap with Sean Woodson. I'm gonna go and I'm a side here with Jack Jenkins. Now, give me Jack Jenkins to win this one by decision. Next up here in the bantamweight division, Long Zhao taking on Francesco Nuzzi. Now, this is also one of the toughest fights, in my opinion, to predict on the entire card. Now, I know Nuzzi, man, on the original scene. There was an accident that I poking no contest in the PFL. Did get a win in the PFL with a nasty, brutal head kick. Then lost to Mando Gortiz. Then, went to Cage Warriors, beating Lucas Rodriguez. Then there was a nasty low blow against Manel Silva, which I think that was a pretty good, even though it was a no contest, pretty good fight for a resume outside of the originally good resume. I think he also beat Bernardo Sapes or whatever his name. I forget how to pronounce his name out in the original scene, which I do think that was a younger version, but still a pretty big win. And Long Chanao, man, I never really was a big fan. I think he's an entertaining fighter, but like I was never too high on this guy. I really wasn't. He goes out there, wins his majority fight over Saya. I think that's a good win. Saya was pretty good on the feet. Then they lose his split decision to Chung Ho Lee, which I think that win hasn't really aged well. And then, made his UFC debut against Quang Lee. Got a UFC win, not bad. Goes out there losing to Su Young Yu. I think he just lost to Elijah Smith. Goes out there, loses to Cody Garbrandt, but I thought he should have won this fight, and it was from all those dirty shots that he was landing, those low blows, man. He kind of blew it up for himself, and I favored Cody Garbrandt against him, which I got to correct, but in reality, man, you know, fought those low blows. Cody Garbrandt would have for sure lost fight. We just saw Cody Garbrandt absolutely get slimed out in the first round by Andre Giannis, man. So it's not a bad look. So it's not a decent look. Su Young Lee, I think Su Young Yu. I actually think that's a pretty good one. He's pretty good on the feet. Besides the Elijah Smith loss, because Elijah Smith in reality, man, one of the best prospects we probably will see in the UFC. I think is he looks to make it a fun fight. And Nuzzi, man, he's a pretty good striker on the feet. I think the ways he should win this fight as if he's on that front foot and countering Long, because Long does have a lack of defense. And I think we've kind of seen that throughout his MMA career. And I think he's starting to progressively. I think even though he'll put on entertaining fights, I just think eventually the UFC is going to eventually kick him out. Because in reality, man, you can put on entertaining fights, but if you're consistently losing, the UFC is going to eventually kick you out. You could literally ask Berzak Alamakin, man. All he was doing was putting on entertaining fights. And, lost, cut from the UFC. So I definitely can see the same thing here for Long. But I think that's a good comeback loss, after that, that whole low blow incident. And, him ended up losing the fight against Cody Garbrandt. So I'm going to side here with Long. And I was actually originally going to go with Nuzzi. But I did look more into the footage. He's also very hittable. Come to his most previous loss to Mando Gortiz out in the PFL. But a few things that I think that both fighters need to do to win this fight. I think for Nuzzi needs to try and stay on. I think he needs to pressure stay on the front foot and try and get an early knockout. I think that's his path to victory. For Long, man, I think he needs to come under your forward pressure, move forward, and have that heavy pace and land big counter shots. Also try and keep that distance because he is the taller fighter by a little bit in this fight. I think he goes out there and I think he's going to. I think he's actually going to. Listen, man, this may seem a little bit wild, man, but I think he's going to go out there and get a first round knockout, man. I think Nuzzi is just also. Both fighters are very hittable, but I think when you put another guy who's hittable just like Long, and that's exactly what we saw against Quang Lee. He gets a knockout, man. I think he's going to be able to get the knockout over Nuzzi. I'm going to go with Long. Cautious prediction, man. I'm going with Long to win this one by knockout in the first round. Next up here in the flyweight division, we got Ray Tsuruya versus Kevin Borjas. Now, the thing is that I have here for this fight is that I do feel like a lot of you guys actually disrespect Kevin Borjas a little bit, man. Because he's had a decent run in the UFC. Goes out there, gets knocked out by Alexandro Costa. Gave him a pretty tough time. Goes out there, beats Ronaldo Rodriguez, which isn't the greatest win. Ronaldo Rodriguez, a literal can. Loses to Sumudaerji. Gave him a tough fight early on in the fight. Then goes up there, he loses to Ismail Rodriguez, man. Power puncher. Pulls up, in my opinion, one of the biggest upsets of the year. And I still can't believe he pulled that off over Andre Lima. Now, here's the thing, man. Ray Sorolla, man, he's a decent fighter. Like, he managed to survive and definitely shoot a lot of takedowns against Joshua Van. But yet again, that's a younger Joshua Van. If we say now, he would get knocked out in the first round. You had a pretty dominant performance over Carlos Hernandez. Decent performance. I did like his last performance. I did like his last performance against Luis Garule. And I actually went with Luis Garule to win that fight. So, Ray Sorolla, to my surprise, I didn't think that Luis Garule was gonna lose that fight. And Ray Sorolla, man, he did it. And I think I feel like a lot of you guys who have actually been following the channel would know I overglazed it, Luis Garule, man. I mean, I did go right when I did predict Luis Garule to beat Daniel Barzi, man. But I thought he was gonna be able to beat Ray Sorolla. But here's the thing, man. I think stylistically, man, I know a lot of you guys are saying, "Oh, Ray Sorolla's striking's getting better." It looked a little bit better in his fight with Luis Garule. I get it, but like that still doesn't hide the fact is, like, it's different when your striking gets better, but it's different when your head movement doesn't get better. He's still he's kind of like Tetsuro Tara a little bit, man. Both fighters are just very hittable on the feet. But, I think Ray Sorolla is a bit of a better striker than Tetsuro Tara. But not like when it comes to elite grappling level. But, like, listen, I think Andre Lima, stylistically, is just a better fighter all the way around. I just think that Ray Sorolla is a bit more of tries to pressures a little bit more to try and force the takedown. And the thing is, man, I think that Kevin Borjas definitely is going to give him a lot of trouble. But it's just the thing is, man, you can't it's different when you're running from a guy who's trying to strike with you the entire time than what it is running from a guy who's just literally trying to shoot takedowns, man. Once they instantly close that gap, man, it's good. It could be very easily for Ray Sorolla to get a takedown. Now, the ways I see Kevin Borjas and Ray Sorolla winning this fight, Kevin Borjas needs to move, use that head movement, land those calf kicks, and land big shots when you catch Ray Sorolla off guard. Because, like I said, even though I know Joshua Van is a different, and Kevin Borjas are two different levels, and, Joshua Van already beating Kevin Borjas. But it doesn't hide the fact is that Ray Sorolla is still very hittable. Even Carlos Hernandez managed to land some few good shots on him in the fight. So I think Kevin Borjas is definitely capable of winning this fight. But how would that takedown defense look towards the later rounds? How would it? Because Kevin Borjas, man, he's kind of like this guy where, we're going to feed you to him because you're a good prospect. He's not that good of a prospect, but he's going to give you a tough time. You'll probably manage to get the win. And if you don't, move on to the next guy. But I think in those early rounds, Kevin Borjas is going to be able to give Ray Sorolla a struggle on the feet. I just think eventually he's going to gas out. And I think Ray Sorolla is going to find the submission in the second round. Now, I was originally going to go with Kevin Borjas, man. But, looking more at the tape, I don't know if he's going to be able to handle that grappling of Ray Sorolla. So, my original prediction was Kevin Borjas, but I did switch it up, and I'm going Ray Sorolla to win this one by submission. So, I'm going Ray Sorolla by submission. Next up here, feature fight of the night, we got Andre Lima taking on Batbayar. I do not know how to pronounce his first name, so we're just going with what we know. Batbayar, man, holy shoot. I'm very excited to see this man make his debut. Batbayar, he went out there, fought on the original scene, and what we've seen from him, because he had one loss in his UFC career. I forgot when that was. But, he had a submission win, knockout win, made his first appearance to the road to the UFC. A absolute brutal knockout with that right hook, then with the hammer fist. Submission win, pretty solid. And oh my God, his most recent win over Yin with the knee and the punches straight to the body, straight to the face, straight to the face, man. Batbayar, man, he's dangerous all the way around with the explosive striking, with that knockout power. This guy is very elite. And Andre Lima, man, I still think he's a good prospect. He goes out there beating Igar Sereno, beats Mitch Raposos. And Mitch Raposos has been looking good. 2-fight winning streak, beating Alan Nascimento's RIP. But, pretty good performance. And it was not a split decision, guys. This was, I think, a pretty dominant decision. Felipe Dos Santos, and this is the same guy, if I'm not mistaken, who gave Lonnie Kavanaugh and Manel Kape trouble. Dominated. Submits Daniel Barzi in the later rounds. Then the whole Kevin Borjas win happened. It wasn't a good night for Andre Lima. But I think that this is going to be that much of a struggle because I think what we learned from the Kevin Borjas fight with Andre Lima is that you kind of have to make him try and come to you because Andre Lima, he's so used to fighters in this close range because it's the flyweight division. So everybody in reality is just landing big heavy shots. They're all in fast pace. You don't usually see a lot of guys kind of just circling around the octagon and landing counter shots at long range. And that's something that Andre Lima kind of wasn't used to it. And that's exactly what Kevin Borjas implemented. And Kevin Borjas, man, what we're used to seeing, like I said, we're used to seeing him come forward, pressured, and give you a tough time in those early rounds. And then towards the later rounds, started to gas, and he managed to finish him or to beat him up the rest of the time. We don't usually see a lot, but Kevin Borjas, like I said, had a better pace. He was more technical on the feet. He was implementing more on those calf kicks to slow down the pace of Andre Lima to try and catch up. And I think that was Borjas had a very good game plan. Even though a lot of you guys say, it wasn't a good night for Borjas either with the low blow. But in reality, man, Borjas was dominating that guy for 3 rounds straight. But Batbayar, man, I think this is a bit more of a tougher task here for Andre Lima, man. Because Batbayar, man, has very explosive movement, man. Knows how to land big, heavy power shots throughout the fight. But I think towards the later rounds, Batbayar does start to gas out a little bit. But the thing is, man, how will Andre Lima do in the later rounds, too? Because what we saw in that fight against Mitch Raposos, his fight against, not Mitch Raposos, his fight with Kevin Borjas, is even in the later rounds, he started to gas out. Well, Kevin Borjas was looking like he had the better cardio. So, but I also feel like Kevin Borjas was just kind of circling around. I don't think that Batbayar is going to be able to do the same because, Borjas had a good... I don't know how Borjas did that for 3 rounds straight without even getting tired. Maybe because Lima wasn't really landing the takedowns, which I feel like he should have also implemented that on too if the striking wasn't working. So I also feel like Lima didn't really have the best approach to the fight. But I think stylistically, these type of matchups are where Andre Lima has the better success. Fighters who are in that close range and land big shots. Listen, even against Mitch Raposos, the reason why he managed to dominate Mitch Raposos the way he did was because Mitch Raposos is a kind of a short-rangey boxer with good striking, so that managed to help him even against Felipe Dos Santos and Daniel Barzi. They're both pretty close, rangy, in-your-face kind of fighters. He managed to do that. Fighters who are not in his face, circling around, moving, using technical striking, are matchups that Andre Lima struggled with. And even when I made my prediction for this fight, I said Lima struggles with fighters. Would probably struggle if Kevin Borjas is moving around, circling, and not in his face. And that's exactly what Kevin Borjas did. He gave him trouble like that. But I think stylistically, Lima is going to be able to get a submission. I'm actually going to say towards the 3rd round of this fight. I think that grappling is definitely going to be a little bit checked here for Batbayar. I don't think Lima's going to come out here in dominant fashion. But I do think that I do think that Batbayar is going to have success early on in the fight. I think this fight is going to be an absolutely very fun, entertaining fight to watch. But I'm going to go with my boy Andre Lima to get the submission. Next up here in the flyweight division, Bilal Hasan taking on Rojas. So let me just get out of my way with my prediction, man. We're going Hasan, and he's going to slime this guy out in the first round. So I try to look at the tape, but in reality is there wasn't really much tape. There was like one fight from his UFC debut. No, not UFC, MMA debut. So I didn't really get to see much footage of the guy. But all I know is that he's a pretty explosive striker, has knockout power himself, has pretty good overhands, does know how to land some pretty good calf kicks. I think guarantee this should be a good fight for one round. I just think eventually Bilal Hassan's going to find the knockout. I like what I saw in his Dana White's Contender Series about a week ago against Saikia, man. And I was actually a little bit overglazed. I thought Bilal Hassan was going to win. He was my lock of the week. But I thought that he was going to find the knockout in that third round. I thought Santiago was going to give him a tough time early. He went out there, got a 45-second knockout. I remember I'm like, what the heck just happened, man? That's when I realized Bilal Hassan is the real deal. A lot of you guys were calling Bilal Hassan the real deal. I'm like, I don't think so, man. Let's see how he beats Saikia. And he beat Saikia pretty convincingly in 45 seconds. But how will he do if Rojas manages to survive the first early rounds? How will Bilal Hassan do later on, man? That's what we got to find out. I'm not too confident. I'm confident, but at the same time, I ain't. Nowadays, you can't be so sure and high anticipated on a prospect. Because nowadays, they can easily get fraud checked. Like how we saw against Orbao. How we saw against Leron Douglas, man. And I think the same thing could definitely happen to Hasan, but we're going with Hasan to win this one by knockout. Next up here in the light heavyweight division, Levi Rodrigues Jr. taking on Ce Liu. Now, I'm also going to make this one pretty quick. We're going with Ce Liu by knockout in the second round, man. There wasn't really much footage of him either. I did see his most previous fight and his loss over here. So I saw like his first two fights over here. He's pretty good. But Levi Rodrigues is just very hittable on the feet. I think he could definitely implement on the grappling. But like what I saw. I know the Felipe Franco win was pretty good. He did almost knock him out in that fight, which I did predict Levi Rodrigues to win. But he originally beat Freddie Viddle until he popped for steroids. But that's the thing, man. You're needing to take steroids with a guy named Freddie Viddle, who's a literal can. I get he was undefeated at the time, but Freddie Viddle is not really that good. So for you to need steroids for that also just kind of concerns me. I think Ce Liu is a good kickboxer all the way around. I don't know if he's gonna be some hype, huge, big prospect, but for what I know, I think he's going to eventually find the knockout. I say Levi Rodrigues is going to give him a tough time. But, there's not really much MMA footage of him. There's a lot of kickboxing matches, a lot of Muay Thai matches of him. So I'm curious to see how he would do in his UFC debut. I'm going with Liu to win this one by knockout, guys. Next up here in the flyweight division, we got Alex Perez taking on Sumudaerji. We got the rematch here. Now, originally this fight was a no contest back in May where I did predict Alex Perez. But it ended up being no contest after Sumudaerji had absolutely hit him with a nasty low blow that made him throw up in a bucket in the second round. But that's the thing, man. I think I saw everything I saw in that fight, man. I'm going to go with Sumudaerji, man. I really am. Now, that first fight, man, I thought I was going to go with Alex Perez. I'm like, I feel like he should be able to get him out there. I knew Sumudaerji was a good prospect, but I'm like, this guy just flatlined Charles Johnson. And Charles Johnson had faced some of the best striking prospects, and mind you, he lost to Charles Johnson as well. Got striking by him too. And I'm like, out of all people, man, Alex Perez, man, to drop him in the first round, man. And fighters like Joshua Vance, Sumudaerji, Lonnie Kavanaugh, who are all good, better strikers than Alex Perez, all manage to get slimed out and couldn't outstrike him. But Alex Perez was. But, Alex Perez, man, I think he's slowly starting to fall off, man. He's a good wrestler, and, going out there losing to Tsuruya isn't bad. And was beating Asu Amabayev the entire time before that submission happened. But I think that Alex Perez is starting to get slowly fall down. Like I said, I think Sumudaerji is going to be the next Chinese prospect in the division, man. I'm a side here with Sumudaerji to win this one by decision, man. Possibly a knockout, but I'm going a pretty dominant 30-27 decision for Sumudaerji. Next up here, feature fight of the night, a absolutely buns matchups. Aoriqileng taking on Kai Asakura. Now, it's not necessarily buns. It's just necessarily what the hell are we doing here, guys? Like, I feel like we could be giving Kai Asakura somebody not named Aoriqileng. Out in Rising, man. He would look like one of the best. He would look like a very good fighter. Had his last 2 wins in Rising, knees to the body. Then lost his UFC debut, got a world title shot against Pantoja, which is very rare to happen. For you to get a title shot on your UFC debut is wild. Managed that, got submitted by Tim Elliott, which I predicted Tim Elliott to win that fight. Then he moved up to 135 and fought Cameron, some other man, where he slimed him out. Now, Kai Asakura, I will say he definitely struggles with good grapplers, but you got to understand, Tim Elliott and Pantoja are 2 very good grapplers. For Aoriqileng, man, I know a lot of you guys say, he maybe need to implement on the grappling, which, could be one thing, but I also think that he should also implement on big, heavy shots. If you see Kai Asakura land a sloppy shot, I would say try and go for the kill. Try and find that big shot to knock him out. Cause I think that's his only way of winning this one. Either he tries to out-grapple him, which I think he's just going to get tired that way, or if he just finds that big shot. His last 5 fights, beating Johnny Munoz Jr., I think it was a no contest over Daniel Marcos, who just won his PFL debut. Went the whole 3 rounds with Raul Rosas. Beating Cody Gibson, where he knocked him out cold. And most recently getting flatlined by Cody Haddon. But Cody Haddon's a pretty good prospect, but was coming off a big layoff. So, yeah. Aoriqileng, man, the thing is, man, losing to Amin Sahabi isn't really that good of a look at all. Amin Sahabi, in reality, man, isn't that good of a fighter. I know losing to Sean O'Malley isn't really, bad. But, had a robbery win over Jose Aldo, man. His retirement fight, man. That's a little bit concerning, man. But, we're going to go with Kai Asakura, man, to win the first round knockout. And I'm going to be very real with you guys. This is my lock of the week, man. Kai Asakura is going to absolutely run through and beat Aoriqileng. Not a close fight whatsoever. I'm going with Kai Asakura by knockout. Next up here, a co-main event. Jingnan Yan taking on Denise Gomes. Now, Gomes, man, I haven't really been impressed by Gomes at all. She goes out there losing to Angela Hill, which, like I say, crafty vet. But, there's no reason why, out of all people, you should be losing to her. A split decision over Wardamara, who at the time was undefeated. I guess so. Carlina, couldn't get the finish, and we saw Bastari manage to finish her. Elise Reed, we just saw Elise Reed get knocked out cold. Yeah, if he had flatlined by Dyer. Did finish her early, though. Most recently beating Takina Pennington. Decent win. Her last 4 wins were very decent. Now, Yan, on the other hand, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated fighters in this weight class. Now, going out there, beating Mackenzie Dern, the current world champion, in a very close fight. Beating Jessica Andrade. Losing to Zhang Weili, who's one of the best women's fighters in history. Beating Tabitha Ricci pretty dominantly. And, I feel like at this point, Tabitha Ricci starting to fall off. But like this is when Tabitha Ricci was a big prospect. So good win. Then, did lose to Verna Jandiroba. And I know this was about a year ago, which we just mentioned Sean Woodson. But Verna Jandiroba is still one of the best fighters in the world right now. I know she lost to Mackenzie Dern, current world champion. Was a pretty close competitive fight. Dominated Tabitha Ricci, not with striking, with grappling. So Verna Jandiroba right now, in my opinion, is still one of the top dogs in the weight classes. So is Jan. And, like I said, her last time winning may not look good against Tabitha Ricci, but I don't think Gomes is as better as Tabitha Ricci, man. And like I said, this one Tabitha Ricci was a pretty big prospect at the time. And Gomes seems like a pretty high-talked, anticipated prospect right now, too. And I think Jan could definitely go out there and definitely shock she's the favorite. But it definitely take out another big prospect in Gomes. Because, it may not look like it, but Gomes is a pretty big prospect. Regardless of how she's winning her fights, she's still a pretty big prospect and still has dangerous power. Now, do I see a lot of you guys think, Gomes' key way to win this fight is knocking out Jan? That's not the case, man. Cause I think Zhang Weili has more power in her hands, and she made it. She probably got beat pretty convincingly, but managed to manage. I think she gave Zhang Weili a pretty tough time. She's good striker, has pretty good hand, has pretty good power in her hands, man. Her striking is underrated, man. I feel like a lot of you guys do not give credit. Jan has had. If you guys look at the career that Jan has had a pretty underrated career. Now I know hasn't fought over a year, almost 37 years old, but sometimes you kind of need that rest, man. You kind of do. There's some fighters who are pretty inactive, but then when they come back, and they take that rest, they come back pretty good. And I think Jan is good is going to be comfortably winning this fight against Gomes, man. I think this is going to be a pretty close competitive fight. I'm not saying this is going to be fight of the night, but like this could definitely be a competitive fight. But like Gomes, man, at this point Mara is just kind of on a downfall as well. And losing a split decision, winning a split decision isn't the greatest look at all. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to side here with the experienced fighter and Jingnan Yan to win this one. I think she, like I said, the striking is going to get to her. I think the power isn't really going to mean much in this fight for Denise Gomes in this fight. I think Jan's going to be very comfortably in this fight. I think we're going to see a pretty good performance here for Jan. She could possibly find a ground and pound stoppage here. But I think she's gonna win a 30-27. I think she's gonna mollywop Denise Gomes. Give me Jan to win this one by decision. Next up here, our main event of the evening. It is Umar Nurmagomedov taking on the Kung Fu Kid, Song Yadong. Now, this has been one of the fights this summer I've been looking forward into, man. And listen, a minus 550 favor for Umar Nurmagomedov. I kind of get it, man. If we look at the last 5 fights, Song Yadong goes out there, beats Chris Cortez pretty dominantly. And I think at the time, Chris Cortez was a high anticipated prospect. Goes out there and gets, starched by Jan. But, I know Peter Yan and Umar kind of have a similar style, but, not a bad loss. Beats Henry Cejudo. I know it was a technical eye poke. I know this is older Henry Cejudo we're talking about, guys. But pretty good win for the resume. Olympic gold medalist and a 2-time division world champion in the UFC. Robbery loss to Sean O'Malley. Yes, I said it. Robbery loss to Sean O'Malley. I had to relook into this fight, guys. Sean O'Malley did not win this fight. He clearly lost the first 2 rounds and had a slightly comeback in that 3rd round. He made it a bit more explosive, but even then, Song Yadong was fighting back, man. So in reality, man, Song Yadong could have easily won a 3-0. But there's no possible way that Sean O'Malley won this fight. There's just no way. Then, comes back with a pretty impressive performance over Deiveson Figueroa. Umar Nurmagomedov, man, he goes out there, beats Berzak Alamakin, who just got cut from the UFC, but not a bad win. Did get dropped in the first round. Then beat Corey Sandhagen, which a lot of people thought that he didn't deserve the fight. He was ranked number 10 at the time, and I think Corey Sandhagen was supposed to be in line for a title shot against Sean O'Malley. So it makes sense. Then gets the title shot, which I thought he won against Merab. Goes out there and beats Mario Bautista in a very close fight. Concerning. I don't care what any of you guys say. Concerning. Decent performance against Deiveson Figueroa 6 months ago as well, where he fought Sean O'Malley in that same card. So, here's the thing, man. If you guys ask me what's more impressive, a pretty decent but a decent dominant performance against Deiveson Figueroa, or submitting a guy in his own game. The same person, by the way. Same person. For me, a submission win over a great submission artist, which only fighters like Brandon Moreno could have. And Brandon Moreno couldn't submit him towards the later rounds. Song Yadong did that early. Not even fighters like Pantoja when Deiveson could have done that, man. Pantoja and Brandon Moreno took them a while, and they couldn't find a submission. Well, Brandon Moreno did, but it took him later on in the fight, man. It took him later on. And Deiveson Figueroa was actually looking pretty comfortably on the feet. I think Song Yadong was looking pretty good. It's an impressive performance. I know you guys may say, oh, his last 2 wins were against Unks. Well, this loss right here to Sean O'Malley was a robbery. And I think what I've seen that improved from Song Yadong is that this guy has more experience in the UFC. This guy's been in the UFC since he was like 18, 19. For 10 years. This guy, at one point, he was very hittable at long range. But that thing has kind of surpassed a little bit. Even against Peter Yan, that long range didn't really matter. It was a pretty competitive fight in the mid-pocket boxing range. And against Mario Bautista, man. And Mario Bautista is a good fighter. But Mario Bautista is not elite, guys. You guys be like, Javian, what did you just say? Dude, without the injury against Corey Sandhagen, he would have lost the fight. Facts or cap? Let me know in the comments. And against Merab, and we all know Merab's a machine when it comes to the wrestling, but like in mid-pocket boxing range, how the heck were you losing to Merab in mid-pocket boxing range? That just shows. And even against Berzak Alamakin, in mid-pocket boxing range, you got dropped in the first round. And I'm not saying that Alamakin ain't no good fighter, but this guy took that fight on a very short notice. And you're telling me he still manages to drop you. And you were getting hurt with striking shots from Merab. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Song Yadong is better than Merab. But I'm saying, when it comes to striking, and I think Song Yadong is the better fighter. And when it comes to submissions, Song Yadong is a better fighter. And when it comes to durability and in your face, Song Yadong is probably better with that. And even he has good cardio too, as well. This is not no easy fight. Listen, man, we've seen a lot of underdogs win this year. Besides, Islam beating Ian Gary. Literally had to hug him, by the way. This is not no easy task for you guys. Need to start putting respect on Song Yadong's name, man. And that's for this reason, man. We're going with the underdog, man. Song Yadong is going to get the job done against Umar Nurmagomedov, man. If you're struggling with Merab in mid-pocket boxing range, you're going to struggle with Song Yadong in mid-pocket boxing range as well. And if you get dropped by Mario Bautista, like I said, Mario Bautista is good, but not elite. You're going to get dropped by Corey Sandhagen. If you're getting dropped by Almakin, who is not better than Song Yadong, by the way, you're going to get dropped by Song Yadong, man. And Umar, man, I don't know if he's going to be able to defend those submissions I don't know, man. Those submissions are going to be tough for him to defend. Because Song Yadong is a pretty good submission artist. But that's going to be the end of the video, you guys. Make sure you guys turn on notifications and hit that like, subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next one. We out. Peace.